You can walk all over me. I think it looks nice, yeah.
People's Landscapes is a programme initiated by National Trust to mark the 200th anniversary of the Peterloo massacre in St Peter's Fields in Manchester. The programme shines a light on places in the Trust's care that have significant connections to places of social change and protest. With the collaboration and advice of artist Jeremy Deller, we commissioned artists to explore stories where people came together to change the course of history. Kinder Scout in Derbyshire, where people gathered for the right of freedom to roam. Tolpuddle in Dorset, where the birth of the Unions movement began. Quarrybank and Dunham Massey with their connections to Peterloo. And the Durham coast, where miners and communities came together to fight the closure of the pits.
For the Trust, we wanted to kind of re-energise the story of the tree and find our place in the story of the Tolpuddle martyrs. We decided to work with the artists Bob and Roberta Smith, and he's very interested in the stories of human rights and art as a basic human right. And he felt that the story of the martyrs was very much fundamentally a story about human rights. His idea was to create portraits of the tree and, if you like, kind of make the tree much more of a sort of symbol within the story.
It's been an exercise really about portrait painting, but it's also about meaning in art and also thinking about the injustice of what happened to the Tolpuddle martyrs in a contemporary setting.
We're telling the story of the Kinder mass trespass when workers from Sheffield and Manchester factories and mills came out into the countryside to protest for their right to access the moors, which were at that time privately owned.
I was approached first by Jeremy Deller, whose work I know and have known for a while, and he told me that he'd been asked to be involved in a thing called the People's Landscape, which was running around the UK, and that one part of that was going to be based around here, around Kinder. And he knew that I had ties and links to this area, so he said, can you think of anything that could work out with that? I don't know, there was something about the orienteering thing, of the treasure hunt aspect of it, of like, you know, you have to read a map coordinate, then try and find somewhere, and you open a box and there'll be another coordinate in there. And there are various artworks along the trail. Hopefully that puts some ideas in people's minds and encourages them to have some relationship with the landscape.
As part of the trail, which is the Be Kinder Trail, Be Kinder Trail, we were commissioned to exhibit our first phase of the project, those backpacker patches, in a way within a chapel in Edale. And we utilised that space. We thought, wow, you know, it's a chapel, let's think about this environment. And we decided to create some rather large light boxes and to glow the artwork, to put them centre stage. And this phase, where we are now with all this hustle and bustle, we've been working with young people from Sheffield, and they've designed lots of different fashion items, like a collection really, inspired by the natural world and particularly Kinder landscapes. And we've had those items produced and now we're photographing them here. We've worked really closely with the National Trust to think about the conservation work that they're doing, to think about the importance of the maintenance, the access, the conservation activities that are taking place, and we're reenacting those as a sort of, not a fashion shoot per se, but actually just a way of creating an art image.
In Easington, what interests me is that we are telling the story of this incredible community at a time when there was huge pressure. We're telling the story of the local women and how they, a very close-knit community, but how they came together to help each other to get through an extremely difficult time. Easington feel that they've been left behind. The story of how the community came together and ultimately the engagement later with nature when the mines had all gone and the beaches were cleaned up, and actually encouraging nature back in. So today you find that the coastline here is part of a heritage coast.
Amber initially started with a group of film and photography students in London at the Regent Street Poly, as it was then. They wanted to work outside the metropolis and work as independently, as freely as possible. The broad idea was to document working class experience and celebrate working class experience. And the way of doing that was embedding our group in different communities for a number of years. I mean, we commissioned work as well, commissioned photographers, and an example here of Isabella Jacek's work during the strike, working in the cafe that was feeding the community during the strike.
There's some beautiful photos where there's great hope, there's great joy, there's huge emotion behind some of the photos and resilience, and there's a bonding, there's a real sense of bonding in these photos that you wouldn't expect.
We are here to do a workshop at the Central Library connected to the 1819 Peterloo commemorations in the city. We're meeting lots of people and asking them what's important for them to protest about. They can create a sign, create a chant. We've got a huge drum to bang. We've got a green screen they can be photographed on, so they can place themselves in any place and any time to make this protest.
We were aware that Quarry Bank and Dun & Massey both had links to Peterloo, and this story's never really been looked at in any detail before, so we've done some new research, and then we've also had an artist family respond to the research and the stories, and they've produced a project called Glorious Phantoms.
And we have used research, current research. We've read many letters between different family members to help us write some of the scripts that we've used. And then at the same time, we're our family, and we've tried to sort of put our family like a piece of tracing paper over that family, and find, as we all have to, ways of having empathy for different people.
And for Quarry Bank, again, it was engagement with the community that lived there in the village and the sounds of the mill that would have happened. And for the film we made there, it was about the community that still used that place, so primarily the school, and taking the sounds of the machines as a starting point to create this drumming track that we all drum to.
I hope the visitors will see the films and put themselves in the shoes of the people who were connected to those properties in 1819 and really think about what they might have done at that time, and really think about what decisions they will have made.
It has changed how I think about the National Trust, because at first I thought it was all about historical buildings, and I realised that it's historical sites, so including nature and people as well.
Painting together, talking together, looking at each other's work as it's been developed. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been great working with Trish, because obviously I've had a new experience like being here, and I've got to do all this. It's just been good.
Giving people a different way of understanding history and to really experience it, because it's one thing coming to see it, but it's another thing translating it into something personal and something unique for them, and I think that's an invaluable experience.